find the reaction to this idea that we should study will with physics interesting. I mean, one, a lot of people are projecting on me their own desire to verify their current notions. Like, how's it going to make the will free if we study it? It might show that it's not. It might, we don't know. Getting the answer will answer it. And you think, like, my curiosity is not tempered by, you know, in proportion to how much I think it's going to be confirmed. I don't want to answer questions just because I think I know the answer and want to be right. It's just as cooler often to get the answer and not only be wrong, but be like, wow, what's the answer even mean? You know, a lot of answers just become, you know, a process of elimination for other answers and actually raise more questions. You know, and there are a lot of people are like, well, it's just going to be reactions. Well, I mean, I don't understand the word just in that context. So let's say it turns out to be a really simple physics once you figure it out. And that would be interesting. I mean, the more boring that answer is, the more interesting the result, because we're talking about the prospect of being able to create conscious life. That's, a lot of people think of that as playing God. Yeah, it would be interesting to figure out how to do that. But the thing that really gets me is, like, you guys acting like there's no difference in the kind of reactions between a water droplet and a protozoa. They're just reactions. One might be more complex, but how do you think we discovered that there was single-celled life forms? It's because even under a microscope, you can tell from the way something's moving that it's alive. And there's things that'll fool you for a while, but if you keep watching, you can see. And really what you look for is this element of choice. I mean, people like to say that the single-celled life forms, well, they just follow a sugar gradient. They just follow a hydration gradient. Yeah, there's tons of those kinds of gradients that are, you know, of import to the survival of that microbe as a system. And they seem to choose back and forth. You know, and the kinds of regularity versus the kinds of random choice that we see are similar with other animals and humans. You know, you could see people thinking they're choosing and they're not, and all these permutations. But in the end, we didn't ask them a question. We didn't ask them if they thought they were alive. We could recognize they were alive. Well before we knew about DNA, we saw these little bits of chemicals are moving around in a different way than that other bit of chemical. It's alive. And then to confirm that theory, that it's not just us, our mind playing tricks on us, just a complicated water droplet, we found that, wow, everything we found that was alive, everything we found that was alive had DNA in it. Yeah, it's a different system, and it might just have to do with some molecular physics, seeing how the secret ingredient seems to be this DNA and what it does, and it's chemical. But, you know, these vested, I mean, I like to make predictions about the future, but I am not vested in them. To find out that I have to become a compatibilist, and a compelling argument to me is made that it is entirely an illusion and there's determinism for biological systems. Oh dear, I was wrong telling the future. I mean, I tell the future for fun, not because I think I know the future. Or, I mean, if I predicted the future 20 times in a row, I wouldn't think I could predict the future. I mean, I think I made some good estimates. Maybe I'd think I was in a situation to keep making good estimates. I wouldn't think I knew the future. I don't have a vested interest in turning out right. Most of my guesses are a step on a trail, so it's like my guess that, hey, there's probably some interesting components in quantum mechanics, if only because biology seems to incorporate all kinds of physics. Every time we found a physics, the body seems to be, you know, nature's using it first. So let's, you know, so the answer of hey, maybe it's the brain has quantum computing, you know, bits to it. That's not because, oh dear, I better turn out right or else all is lost. I'll lose interest in brain chemistry if I'm not right. No, it's just, so I could support the research that's looking into that. And some of those things are dead ends in knowledge and science and philosophy all, and some aren't. And so you make those bets for fun and profit, and it just seems like there's a lot of people reacting on, oh, no, you shouldn't gamble on the future. And many of you also at that point are saying, well, they'll just figure it out, don't worry about it, they'll get it done, the little workers of science will get it done. What do you mean? They could all have people like you around them going, yeah, if you want to ruin your career, you ask those lily questions. And in fact, that has happened. Hard sciences, basically one of the things they hardened against is any questions that have to go through this individual emotive choice that we deal with as our daily selves. They tried to subtract that out, so they literally didn't want to answer questions like that. Even psychology was faced with that at the dawn of modern scientific methodology. That a question of the mind, these are just the unanswerable, if the answers would be boring and petty or whatever. Well, we've gotten beyond that, right? And this is the best way, this is the least phantasmagorical way to ask consciousness questions about consciousness, is to say, well, what's the physics? Which chemicals can do it? If it's wiring, do any wires work? What kind of wires? Which is the fundamental smallest, what's the smallest conscious circuit you can create? And so on. To find it out. Right? Just set the scientists on, they'll figure it out, fill in the blanks. Well, first of all, I think your prediction that this is a fill in the blank thing is lacks humility, because you should at least show me, right? I could show you why I think those three algorithms I mentioned and fast computers could solve the Turing test. There's a little bit of a picture there of how you could fill it in. It's like we have voice recognition. So let's say I ask you to imagine something that, instead of this halfway decent stuff we're getting in the phone services now, that it's super good. Because a computer fast enough with the current software could do a lot better. So you can imagine that, right? This filling in the blank kind of thing. So tell me something like that where, or translation software, it sucks, but you can see how it's operating and can be improved. Show me something that's creating, even a half-assed subjective experience that we could imagine, souping up into us, into our kinds of mentality, or even that of a fly. So, hang on the fly example if you want, but it's a whole spectrum. I think you probably should deal with mammals. I think mammal consciousness, humans seem to have a kind of mammal consciousness. There's similarities. You can share certain emotional communication with other mammals, more so than other branches in the animal kingdom. And, so let's just use mammals. I think it's going to be interesting to create one of those things, and I think it's not the sort of thing that you say, oh, well, they just need to fill it in. Show me where there's even a half-assed consciousness that you can imagine filling into just a mammal level of consciousness. Just a hint of what you think can be followed up on. I don't have a hint. There's nothing that has a little tiny bit of subjective consciousness producing characteristic to it that we know of. And when you guys use the word just, it's well, tell me then. I want to know. The answer to something boring and easy. Why spend all this energy not telling me? Please.